Right. Okay. Thank you. Cool. So why are we here today? Let's quickly get right to the point, right? Today we are here to talk about monitoring infrastructure, right? Now, before we start, right, let me just introduce myself. My name is Amit. Let's choose a thicker pen. My name is Amit, and I'm based out of Bangalore, India. And I have the industry experience of around 19 years. And I have been working on DevOps for past 15, 16 years, right? So I have worked across all the um, all the elements of the DevOps ecosystem like cloud, version control, CI/CD, infrastructure as code, deployment architectures, and everything like the containerization. So everything has been in my playground. So let's talk about monitoring the infrastructure today, right? We just have short amount of time, so I'm going to utilize like 30 minutes for the explanation and some demonstration, and we'll take around 5 minutes for the Q&A, and we'll wrap it up. Okay. All right. So monitoring infrastructure. What is infrastructure? Infrastructure is your servers, right? If you are working in an organization, in a team, you may have some servers where some compilation happens, where some code is written, where some code is saved, right? Or some other processes happen. Like there is a server which hosts your Active Directory. There's a server which hosts your Jenkins, or there are servers which are running your Kubernetes clusters. So your hardware, basically, right? Hardware. And what do we mean by monitoring? Monitoring is keeping an eye on, right? So what does that mean? We want to keep an eye on our infrastructure, on our servers. Are they behaving fine? Is there any problem with the servers? Now, what kind of problems can we expect? Does it have enough disk space? Is it running out of memory? Is it, are there so many processes that there is no way that the CPU can perform at its 100% efficiency? So there are various problems that could be with a server, and we would like to monitor those, right? Keeping an eye on the servers. Now, how do you keep an eye on? When you say keeping an eye on, that means you want to always look at the servers, right? Always look at the servers. So you want to always make sure that you want to always have the data about what is the current server state. That's what keeping an eye on, right? If you are a parent and you have a child, whenever the child goes around playing in the park or being with the friends or in the house as well, if the child is small, you always keep an eye on the child. You always are watching the child. Are they doing something stupid, or are they going to hurt themselves? Like that, you want to watch your servers all the time. But then again, you cannot hire a person to just look at the server and its metrics all the time, right? Why would you want an engineer or a human resource to look at the servers and then constantly refreshing the resource utilization of the servers? Or if there are 1,000 servers, then you will have to hire 1,000 people, each one monitoring one server. So instead of doing all those things in infrastructure engineering or in system engineering, we have some tools and some solutions which can monitor the infrastructure for you. Right? What does that mean? That means if you have, let's say, hundreds of servers, then you can set up one monitoring service, one more server, which is a software installed, which is a monitoring software. And what it does is it constantly talks to these servers, gets their latest state, and displays them for you in form of graphs or pie charts or whatever, right? And if there is something wrong, send you an alert. It could be an email, or it could be an chat message or SMS or whatever. So a software continuously keeps an eye on the servers, and if something bad happens, it sends you an alert. In today's discussion, I'm going to just talk to you about how do we set this up. Not the alerts part, but how do you set up a monitoring for your servers, right? So there are many software solutions, many tools which can be used for monitoring. You must have heard of Nagios, then Zabbix, and many other cloud providers have their own managed services. We are going to talk something which is pretty recent and using Prometheus. So it's a pretty new entrant. Like in past 6, 7 years, it has gained a lot of popularity. What Prometheus does is it allows you to collect metrics or the system information from your system, right? So you install Prometheus on a server, and Prometheus can then talk to the servers and get some data from them. Now, there is a specific format in which the data has to be exposed by the servers. How does the server expose the data so that Prometheus can get the data, right? So the data which Prometheus looks for is called metrics, right? For example, CPU utilization is equal to 0.5. This is a metrics of a server. Free RAM is equal to 50%, let's say. This is a metrics of a server, right? So how does Prometheus get the metrics of the servers? There are various ways. What Prometheus wants is it wants a web server. It wants to connect to a URL on a particular port, and then it at that particular URL it expects a key value pair or set of key value pairs like this. So, for example, if this is server one, for example, then if you tell Prometheus that hey, connect to HTTP server one port 5000, let's say, and slash metrics URL, then Prometheus is going to look at this URL, which is nothing but this server, and it expects that on port 5000 of this server, a service is running which exports the metrics. And the metrics are nothing but key and value, right? And it takes those metrics and then saves or stores within itself. So Prometheus stores within itself. Now, how do you get this? So you can install Prometheus, you can configure Prometheus to look at these servers, but how do you make sure that these servers are producing this data? So there are various other tools which allow you to export this data. One of them, which is also developed by Prometheus, is called Node Exporter. A node exporter is nothing but a tool, a command line tool, which runs on a server and runs a web server on a particular port and publishes all the metrics. That's it, right? And that is all. Node exporter starts a web server, publishes metrics, then you tell Prometheus that, hey, monitor my system. That's all. Now let's take a look at it as part of demonstration. Then I will come back to this diagram and maybe we will add more information. Right. So let's quickly go to our lab. Just give me a second. Let's see if I can. Give me a second, please. right? So I have an AWS account and I'm quickly going to create three servers. Okay. I will create three servers. One is going to be the Prometheus one, and the other servers are going to be just servers which I want to manage or which I want to monitor. Right. So let's quickly create three servers. I'll not give the names as of now. Till Google to. Don't worry about what I'm doing here. If you want to know how to create EC2 instances, you can read more about it later. Right, and here I'm going to say all travel. That's it. We have three servers, launch instance. Right, so we have three instances. The first one I'll name it as from server, control server, and the other ones is, let's say, server one and server two. Right, so we have three servers now, and we can use the Prom control server to install Prometheus there, and then use server one and server two and monitor them. Okay. All right. So first let's have Prometheus installed on this server. So I'm going to connect to this instance. So I got this Prometheus instance. This is my Prometheus server. So I'm connected to it. And now let's install Prometheus on it, right? So this is my control server. I want to install Prometheus on it. Let's quickly look for the documentation. Pretty straightforward, no rocket science. We can use Docker or we can use pre-compiled binaries, right? So operating system is okay. Let's, let's see if we can install with apt. Maybe, let's see. Right, we need to download and we might need to download itself, right? Nothing else can be done. It's just Linux. All right, so let's go to our system here and let's become root. And as root, we just update the apt cache. And we download the Prometheus library. So we see this is tar.gz. So let's unzip it. Done. So if you see, there is a Prometheus directory here. And here we have the Prometheus binary. And the prometheus.yaml is a file which contains our Prometheus configuration. Okay. Right. So now I'm going to say /Prometheus. And it runs. The Prometheus server is now running. If I browse to the IP address of my machine, or the host name of my machine, like this, and port 9000, okay, this is strange. Or maybe see on port 80. No, we don't get anything here as well. We are at the correct, we are checking at the correct system, 173. Right. Okay, no worries. Just give me a second. It's 9090 actually. Let's see. 9090. Yes. All right. So you see here, I ran the command /Prometheus, right? And it started my Prometheus server. It runs on port 9090. So on port 9090, I see Prometheus. You can see Prometheus and other stuff, right? Um, Now, Prometheus is up. Now I want to monitor the metrics of server one. Let's say I want Prometheus to look at server one and get all the data, all the metrics from server one. So if this is server one, I need to make sure that the metrics are published on a port on the server and accessible over HTTP. So I'm going to use something called as node exporter and run node exporter on server one, which produces some metrics for me. So let's quickly take a look at node exporter Prometheus documentation. It's pretty straightforward. So what we need to do is we need to download node exporter and then run it. Pretty straightforward. So this is the node exporter. Again, it's on the same download page where the main Prometheus utility is. So if you scroll down, you will find node exporter and just download it and unzip it and then run the server. Okay. So let's connect to the server one. Connect it. Let's become root. Right. While this is happening, let's get this download link. And we'll say wget. So wget is a tool which downloads files from internet locations. Right? So it downloads the file here. You see node exporter blah 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 dot tar is downloaded. If I see the files, this is the tar.gz. And in the installation document itself, there is a small command that they have mentioned. Extract it. I'm just going to use that command. Done. So if you see here, there is a folder. Let's go inside this. And now there is a node exporter. Now node exporter is also running. Okay, node exporter is running now. So what we have done, we have taken a control server, installed Prometheus on it, then took a server which we have to monitor and install node exporter on it. Now node exporter should be running. And if you go back to the documentation, we should see that we can access the node exporter on or the metrics on 9100. So let's quickly get the IP address hostname of this server 1 and I didn't copy it. Server 1 colon 9100. Ah, come on. 9100. Right? Right now there is node exporter page and you see there is a matrix available. If I click on it, so hostname colon 9100/metrics. And you see these are the metrics that are available on the system. If I go down, you can see a lot of things. For example, CPU seconds total, how much CPU has been used till now, right? How many CPU has been, just give me 1 second, please. Hi, sorry about it. I got a call. So you see the metrics here, right? Let's find some interesting one. Right. So how much bytes are written on the disks, right? How much bytes are written, like all disk IO, how much disk IO is happening, how much disk flush requests are happening. So there is a lot of metrics, right? Then there is, let's say, memory, node memory active. So how many active memories are memory bytes are there, right? Um, say something which we can, let's say partition. Right, load. How much is the load on this node? Right, 1 minute average, 15-minute average. How much is the load? So we can see all those metrics here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure Prometheus, to get the metrics from this server automatically so that I can see it on the Prometheus dashboard. Let's go there. I'm going to connect to my Prometheus server here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the Prometheus server from running. And you see there is something called as prometheus.ym. So this file contains the complete configuration about Prometheus. And in this file, I can define what are my scraping targets. Scraping target means where should Prometheus connect to and scrape the metrics from. So Prometheus.yaml, and you see something is there, not much data, but there is an example here. We are not going to go with much examples, or we are not going to change much things here. These are the system configurations, but you already see there is a section called scrape config. Okay. All right. So here you see scrape configs is the configuration. Now, there is already one configuration that exists, but we are not going to talk about that. I'm going to write my own configuration here. Then we come back and talk about the existing configuration already. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this line. I'm going to copy this line and paste here. Right. Let's say job name is server 1 and the target is this URL. Okay, so what I say is add one configuration which is called server 1, and I say collect the metrics from this target. By default, Prometheus is going to talk to this target and add /metrics to it, right? And then collect the metrics from there. So I add this, I save it right now, and I run my Prometheus again. It says is not a valid host name. Okay. Let's see. Maybe we don't need to give the protocol. Let's run Prometheus. All right. Prometheus is up. And if I go to my Prometheus right now, I should just reload it. You won't see much changes here. But if we go to status and see the configuration, we can see what are the configuration this Prometheus is running with. And you can see in the script config, let me zoom in a bit. In the script config target, we have server 1 and it is connecting to this URL. So that configuration is there right now. So let's look for it. Let's say node load 1, right? Node load 1. And now I go to Prometheus and in the expression, I look for this matrix, node load 1. Click on execute. And you see here, there is a matrix called node load 1 on the instance, this one, and the job is server 1. And the value is 0 right now. So that means currently there is no load on this server. Now let's generate some load on this server, right? So I'm going to connect to server 1. And let's generate some load. Let's look for ways how we can generate some load. Let's do this. Hmm. So there is a tool called stress, which can put a load on our system. Right. So now I think it should be running some load, generating some load on our system right now. I'm also going to put it in the background. And if I see, you see, there is CPU being utilized, right? Okay. So now if I see this data, maybe it gets updated. So now you see load is increasing now. It has increased to 1.26, right? And now it is increasing 1.65. So Prometheus is going to talk to the server and get every 10 seconds, it's going to get the load value. And you can create a graph and you can say, make the graph for last 5 minutes or 1 minute and show me what is the load on my system. And you can see here in the graph that load has been consistently increasing. The load is increasing all the time, right? Now I can do the same thing on server 2. And then we can see, all right, on server 2 also the load is increasing all the time. And I can do this for any metrics, right? For example, if I reload this and if I look for load, you see the load has increased to 2.41. So it is going to capture that and it is already there. If I reload this, yeah, it's already there, 2.41, 2.51 it is, right? So it is capturing all the data. Makes sense? So this is what you can do. So you can now do the same thing, create an exporter for or run node exporter on all the nodes, generate the metrics, and then from the metrics, gather the metrics from Prometheus, and then create a centralized dashboard on your Prometheus system. Now, there are some dashboarding tools also like Grafana, which connects with Prometheus um, and then generates the nice graphs and dashboards based on the data that is there in Prometheus. You can use that as well. All right, let me take some questions before we wrap up. So there is a question, what is the purpose of Grafana? Do we need to install it separately? Yes, it has to be installed separately. And what it does is it connects to Prometheus. So you can install a Grafana tool separately and connect it with Prometheus. And then what Grafana does is reads the Prometheus data and allows you to create nice looking dashboards, very nice looking dashboards, pie charts, gauges, meters, some text, very nice dashboards you can create. And you can have a bird's eye view on your entire infrastructure. Can you show export of Windows metrics? Also, can you show exporting metrics from Kubernetes pods and clusters? All right, so that's not the scope of the discussion, but when you run Kubernetes, Kubernetes by itself runs metrics. There is a metric server that runs on Kubernetes, right? So if you look for Kubernetes, right? So we have Kube API server, which actually exposes some metrics. You can also use C advisor and you can get node specific metrics, and then you can configure them as our scraping targets. Right? So you can do that. Question, I saw you configured manually, but when it is done, if you need to see the data, will it be manually click to view latest data? Do you mean this data? So it is not refreshing as of now automatically. So you need to refresh it manually here. But when you use Grafana and all, you will always see manual refresh or automatic refreshed things. That's why we don't use Prometheus for dashboarding. We use it only for collecting the data. In the demo use case, if server 1 is restarted, will node exporter exec also need to be run again? As of now, yes, because we are manually running node exporter, but you can run it as a service. So when the system restarts, the service also runs automatically. And same is for Prometheus server or any service that you run. Question from Yogesh, on getting the data from server, how to know which is causing the server issue, which can be high load? That is up to you, how metrics are designed. Sometimes metrics will not give you complete data. It just gives you that there is a symptom, right? Then you need to troubleshoot, you need to diagnose why there could be some observation or some behavior. How do we get alerts on variation of CPU and memory of servers? All right, so Prometheus by itself as a standalone tool does not send any alerts, but it can send alerts. So there is another tool called Alert Manager, right? Like Grafana is external tool, Alert Manager is also an external tool, which is also developed by Prometheus team. And what it does is you can specify some conditions, like if my CPU goes below 5% and if my RAM goes below 20%, send me an alert. So then it can send alert for you. Make sense? Where is the Prometheus metric stored in Prometheus server? There is a special kind of database called as time series database. So Prometheus is nothing but a time series database where it stores the timed snapshot of all the metrics of all the servers. Question, can we add custom application specific metrics via node exporter? So you don't need to use node exporter. Node exporter is a tool which allows you to export metrics of a node just like that. But if you are running some applications and if you want to export metrics from that application, then you can write it as part of your code. You can write your own web server and expose the metrics. All right. So thank you for the questions, and I hope this demo was useful. It made sense, and I think it should give you a starting point of reading more about it. You can start reading more about it. You can start, um, you know, doing some hands-on by your own. Set up some Prometheus server. You will get the recording of this video. So follow this recording. Set up a Prometheus server and try to do some monitoring. Okay. All right. So with this, let's wrap up the session. I will meet you soon in the next one. We regularly do these webinars every month, once or twice. So hopefully I'll see you around sometime again. Thank you and take care. Bye bye. Have fun.